Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service on behalf of a unique partnership with Alaska Public Media on this Thursday, June 2nd, 2022. And if you'd like additional weather information on top of what I provide, as well as to check out the weather anywhere in the country, you can go to weather.gov and it'll bring up a map of the continental U.S. with Alaska and Hawaii in the lower left. And on today's, this afternoon's map, we see a broad area red in the Gulf of Mexico surrounding southern half of Florida. Those are tropical storm warnings. A tropical system will be slowly working its way northeastward and could bring portions of southern Florida as much as 10 inches of rainfall. We also have other action up there, the mid-Atlantic region, severe thunderstorm watches with some warnings in effect. So again, if you want additional weather information, not just for Alaska, anywhere in the country, you can go to that weather.gov. Here in Alaska, the big weather headlines, we continue to see this ridge of high pressure in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. This is bringing very warm, very dry conditions across much of the southern two-thirds of the state. And this will continue into the weekend. This has been quite a remarkable stretch of dry and warm weather here over the past couple of weeks. Fire danger continues to be very high to extreme in many areas of the state along and south of the Yukon River. Red flag warnings are in effect through this evening, as well as again for tomorrow, Friday, in northern portions of the Panhandle. And a flood advisory continues for the upper Copper River Basin, for the Gulkana River and areas there along the Lake Louise Road in through this weekend and into Monday of next week. Quick check of some FAA webcams. We can see up there along the west coast there, noaa, southern portion of the Seward Peninsula, low clouds, some light fog, only 37 degrees, but that's not uncommon when you have a ridge of high pressure overhead. The warmer air, colder waters of the Bering Sea creates low clouds and fog. Iliamna there in the southwest, kind of down in the west-southwest arm of the Alaska Range is sunny and very dry temperatures this afternoon there, near 70 degrees. And as we go further east, northway, notice the cumulus clouds beginning to show some vertical development. That's indicating some instability and even a little virga falling from the base of those clouds. As we get into tomorrow, we could see those cumulus clouds build a bit more into some scattered showers and even an isolated thunderstorm. Temperatures there at Northway and Tok are pushing 80 degrees. Juneau, red flag warning in effect through this evening, 81. Juneau as well as Haines likely in record high territory again for today. And again, red flag warnings will be reissued for the day on Friday in northern interior Panhandle. You can see those areas highlighted in red across the northern Panhandle, including Juneau, Skagway, Haines. We anticipate another day of bright sunshine, very warm temperatures, low humidities, and just enough of a breeze to meet those criteria for red flag warnings. Off to the west, little area yellow I drew in there around Glen Ellen. We continue to have that flood advisory for the Gulkana River in the areas up there in the northern Copper River Basin. As the snow melt continues from the higher elevations, river levels are at bank full. And so be cautious along any of those areas if you're going to be near some of the streams and rivers there. I want to speak of fire weather. So for today, red flag warnings continue for the northern Panhandle this evening and again on Friday. Continued warm and dry across the interior, south central areas of the state through Friday, with even some isolated thunder possible, as I mentioned, upper Copper River Basin tomorrow, spreading westward toward the Talkeetna Mountains as we go through Friday afternoon and evening. And the outlook is just this high pressure aloft is going to provide several more days of warm and mostly dry weather to the interior, although we will start to see a couple of easterly waves working its way along and south of the Alaska Range that'll bring in some moisture, bringing scattered showers and isolated afternoon and evening thunderstorms here through the weekend and into early next week. There's the fire danger, very high to extreme, especially along and south of the Yukon River. We have extreme fire danger developing up there through the Yukon Flats, as well as on just the northern side of the Alaska Range, down as well as the lower portion of the Kuskokwim River Basin. So again, refrain from any sort of outdoor burning and activities that could cause a spark, because we also have pockets there of very high to extreme fire danger, Copper River Basin, Matsu Valley, and the west side of the Kenai. Quick check one more time here of the river levels. Essentially, the rivers are open throughout most of the state, except for a few areas in the highest elevations, and then there in the far north of the Brooks Range, North Slope. And as I mentioned, that flood advisory will continue there, the Gulkana River, the Upper Copper River Basin, through this weekend and at least into Monday of next week. Looking at the satellite imagery, well, we have fairly clear conditions across the southwest, south central interior. Otherwise low cloudiness, areas of fog continue throughout portions of the Gulf. Back across the Bering Sea, there is a system working its way out of eastern Russia. It'll bring a cool front that'll work its way toward the lower Chukchi Sea and Bering Strait coming up here in the surface weather maps. So today, notice this ridge of high pressure in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere have created a lot of clear skies across the interior. The only notable weather system is a low pressure there southwest of the central Aleutians, and then we do have a system way up there in the Arctic Ocean with a cold front pushing its way eastward through eastern Russia. Later tonight, we just expect generally fair conditions to continue across much of the mainland. A little bit of moisture trying to work its way there through the upper Copper River Basin along the Alaska Range, and by Friday afternoon, that could trigger an isolated shower, thunderstorm popping up as we go through the afternoon, evening hours there. Upper Copper River Basin around Northway, Tok, and then also into the Talkeetna Mountains. And by the time we get into Saturday, though, we're going to start to see a broader area of some lighter rain and rain showers there through the Panhandle, with a continuation of some isolated thunderstorms possible there along and south of the Alaska Range across the southern interior. And then the frontal system, cold front, just kind of begins to weaken as it approaches the northwest coast Saturday afternoon, with the low there well south of the Aleutian, central Aleutians there in the North Pacific. So low temperatures Friday morning are going to be mild, 40s to near 50 there in the Panhandle, as well as across much of south central areas. And high temperatures Friday afternoon, look at that, could be in the low, even mid 80s there at looking at Haines and Skagway there. Temperatures very warm up through the Matsu Valley, pushing 80 in some spots there, like Talkeetna. Saturday morning lows, a mild 50, even some 50 plus degree readings, like in the Anchorage Bowl. And afternoon highs Saturday will again be back up in the 70s to near 80 degrees across much of the south central areas outside of the mountains. Cooler though, back into the more likely into the 60s there across the Panhandle on Saturday, with a cloud cover and rain showers. Far north, lows will get down below freezing, North Slope and Arctic Coast, otherwise staying generally above 40 through the Yukon Valley. And temperatures Friday afternoon confined to the 30s along the Arctic coast, Utqiagvik to Kaktovik. But again, in through the Yukon Valley, 70s, isolated reading not impossible. Saturday morning lows, again, coldest below freezing there across the North Slope. Arctic coast, but generally above 40, even some 50-degree readings around Fairbanks. And temperatures Saturday afternoon will get back up into the 70s there again along and just south of the Yukon River. Cooler out there, western Seward Peninsula, upper 30s. We get over toward Wales and down toward Savunga. And then across the southwest interior, lows will remain mild in the 40s. 70s, though, highs with an isolated 80-degree reading not out of the question, especially around McGrath or King Salmon. 40s, though, as you extend out over the colder waters there surrounding the Aleutians. And Saturday morning lows could see some areas stay around or just above 50 there through the Yukon River Valley. And temperatures even a few degrees warmer across the southwest interior in the 70s to near 80 degrees. The extended temperature outlook, June 8th through the 12th, calls for much above normal temperatures to likely continue across the southwest, especially the southwest interior, lower Yukon, and through the lower middle Kuskokwim River basins. As far as any relief for rain, we could see a bit more in the way of some showers and thunderstorms at times as we go up through the southeast panhandle on up into the southeast interior, including the Copper River Basin, Talkeetna Mountains, so keep that in mind. But otherwise, we still have a rather very warm and dry stretch of weather to go here with the upcoming weekend.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Well, it's time now for your aviation weather, and if you have a flight planned either for Friday into Saturday, we continue to see this ridge of high pressure anchored through the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere running from the southwest portions of the mainland across through the east into northwest Canada. And this feature has brought very warm and very dry conditions, especially to the southern two-thirds of the state. We do anticipate with these warmer temperatures, some places are going to see highs reach the lower 80s, so that starts to bring in high density altitude concerns just to kind of get you prepped here as we get deeper into summer. Aircraft performance, meaning poorer lift, especially with heavier loads, shorter runway, so keep that in mind in your flight planning as we head here deeper towards summer. Otherwise, along the Arctic coast, IFR conditions there extending down through the lower Chukchi Bering Strait out over the Bering, and a little bit of IFR conditions off the coast there of the southern panhandle. Friday afternoon, we'll see the potential for a few widely scattered thunderstorms popping up there. Eastern half the Alaska range on in through the Talkeetna Mountains along the southeast Alcan border. Otherwise, much of the interior continuing to see very warm and dry conditions, very high fire danger as well. Back out toward the west, we have IFR conditions along and just off the Arctic coast down through the lower Chukchi Sea across St. Lawrence Island back through much of the Bering and the central western Aleutians. Saturday morning, we expect IFR conditions to be widespread along the North Slope Arctic coast down through the lower Chukchi Sea and Bering Strait. Also, areas of IFR down there along the southern portion of the panhandle around Craig and areas like Metlakatla. And then further west out across the Aleutians, much of the central Bering. Saturday afternoon, there is that potential for some isolated thunderstorms to pop up with the daytime heating up through the upper Susitna Valley around the Talkeetna Mountains, as well as east-south side of the Alaska Range to along the Alcan border. IFR conditions will be out over the Gulf there, just off of the especially outer coast and north central Gulf Coast. Also IFR conditions lower Chukchi Sea back down through the Bering Strait. Past conditions on Friday, VFR is going to rule across much of the mainland, and Tuvik as well as Adigan passes VFR. Further south and west along the west side of the Alaska Range there, Lake Clark and Merrill VFR, as will Rainy Pass. And then as we go up into Windy Pass, we expect VFR conditions there, but some cumulus buildups and an isolated thunderstorm not out of the question just east there of Windy Pass as we go through the afternoon and early evening. Isabel Pass, we'll see VFR conditions, though, with the potential for some cumulus buildups and a few widely scattered thunderstorms. Same thing at Metasta Pass. Look for VFR conditions to prevail, but some cumulus buildups are certainly possible there in the afternoon and evening with some widely scattered showers and thunderstorms possible. Tanita Pass will generally see VFR conditions, as will Portage Pass as we get down there toward the northwestern Gulf Coast. And then in the far northern part of the Panhandle, Chilkoot and White will see VFR conditions on Friday. Freezing levels are lowest across areas of the Arctic coast, at least aloft. They drop down to 2,000 feet there up toward Kaktovik as well as Dead Horse. But we do see them rise upwards to around and over 8,000 feet across the southern third of the state and across all of the Panhandle, thanks to that ridge, that warm ridge of high pressure. Icing potential, relatively small, perhaps between 6 and 14,000 feet in the northwest there, western part of the North Slope, out over the Bering Sea, and then between 6 and 14,000 feet there in the central Aleutians, associated with an area of low pressure that will be southwest of the Aleutians. Up at 30,000 feet jet stream level, we see high pressure circulation there just along the YK deltas, and a low south of Haida Gwaii and another low south-southwest of the central Aleutians, down to 9,000 feet. Not much in the way of any winds there in the mainland, but we do see some winds there from the southeast over the Aleutians. And then Friday, 3,000 foot level winds are strongest there near and just north of the central Aleutians to 40 knots out of the south, thanks to that area of low pressure. Otherwise, high pressure rules from the west side of the state extending across northwest Canada. No widespread turbulence, though we do expect some isolated moderate turbulence there across the central Aleutians between the surface and 4,000 feet. So if you are able to get out, please have a safe flight.
Hello, Starshines. As we enter June, we're going to talk about one of the constellations that makes up the summer triangle, the musical mini Lyra the Harp. Hit the skies any night this week, a couple hours after sunset. If you look east, you'll see the stars of Lyra rising at the top of the summer triangle. It's small, so let's get a closer look. The brightest star in Lyra is Vega, a blue-white star 25 light years from Earth. Traveling counterclockwise from Vega, we have 4 stars forming a parallelogram. They are Zeta Lyrae, Delta Lyrae, and the 2 on the far end are Sulafat and Sheliak. Lyra is said to belong to Apollo and subsequently was given to Orpheus. Orpheus was so skilled at playing the harp that the music was said to charm anyone who heard it. Lyra sits inside the area of the summer triangle with stars Deneb and Altair. Learn more about it on our website and keep looking up.
We're at Vandenberg Air Force Base. We're about 20 minutes before the launch of ICESat-2. You might see the white light off in the distance. That's the Delta II rocket.
It kind of feels like an idea that was always going to just stay an idea. But no, it's real. It's sitting on top of the rocket.
You know, and for me, it's kind of surreal. Like you say, it's been 10 years, and it's hard to believe. It's like, we're really here? This is really about to happen? It's totally cool.
This is Dr. Tom Newman. Over the years, his work has taken him to some pretty remote areas to study changes in the ice regions of our planet. And his research, among many others, has defined the goals of the new NASA satellite, the Ice, Cloud, and Land Elevation Satellite 2, or ICESat-2.
And we have ignition. And
the story of ICESat-2 really begins with ICESat-1. ICESat told us all kinds of cool things about the ice sheet and about sea ice that we didn't really know to ask. That data allowed us to measure elevation change of ice sheets in a way that we hadn't been able to before, and showed that all the action on the ice sheets, the places that were really changing quickly, were around the edges. So when we were thinking about what could we do better next time, we knew that was one key component.
In addition to the edges of the ice sheets, ICESat-2 needed to measure a dimension of sea ice that remained elusive: its thickness. To figure out how thick sea ice is, you can measure the height of ice sticking out of the ocean, or freeboard, and compare it to the height of water between the sea ice flows, called leads.
The problem is, sea ice is really dynamic, and those cracks open and close various places in the ice pack throughout the day, throughout the year, and what we need to do is have measurements of the ocean whenever it's available, wherever it occurs in the sea ice pack.
To solve that problem, ICESat-2 was designed with a fast-pulsing laser instrument to take precise, near-continuous measurements across its 3 pairs of beams. For 10 years, everything about the mission was designed to measure rapid changes in the most rapidly changing part of the cryosphere. But it has to get into space first.
But it's a huge transition going from the ground to in space. We've spent better part of 10 years, thousands of people have been involved, and actually seeing the rocket there on the pad with all of that work kind of all put together in one place, it's pretty amazing. And then getting up in the middle of the night to go watch the actual launch, it's sort of surreal in a way, because you've put so much time into it for so long, and actually seeing it over there is like, whoa, you know, it's a big deal.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0. That's off. That's 1.
That was awesome. Totally cool. There it went. That was Atlas. The last Delta II heading on out.
So Atlas has been turned on over the course of the first few weeks of the mission, really culminating for us with a laser. So this is our first look at sea ice data from ICESat-2, and it looks fantastic. The signal levels look great. We've got plenty of photons there. We're capturing ridges. We can clearly see the ocean. All sorts of cool stuff in there, and this is just our first data. It's only going to get better from here on out.
The data from ICESat-2 is well on its way into digging deeper into the unknown dimensions of sea ice sheets, and glaciers. It will shed light on changes in sea level and global weather patterns, and once again find new things about ice we didn't know to ask.
So my heart is definitely racing. I don't know about anyone else's. This is the stuff nerds dream of.
Slight chance the flight may see ICESat-2 in their center windscreen. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, that's gonna 5, 4, 3, 2.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back, and to start our marine weather segment, we're going to look at the sea ice edge in the Bering Sea. It has retreated and melted off there in all but the far north areas surrounding, especially on the north side of St. Lawrence Island, as well as back off toward the west of there, and then up through the Bering Strait. And we do have some ice flowing there out just outside of Norton Sound. As we go further north on up through the Bering Strait, there are a few areas of ice. Shore fast ice remains along the north side of looks like the Seward Peninsula on up along areas of the northwest coast, and we expect this ice to continue to melt off and more Polinias open up, and with some of the wind action that's going to sit up there along the eastern Arctic coast there, it could help break up the ice there between Utqiagvik and Kaktovik. Looking at the winds for tomorrow and the waves for the southeastern panhandle. Winds will be out in the north, 20 knots, couple foot waves there in through Lynn Canal. In that area there, we'll also have red flag warnings in effect again on Friday and Friday evening as a result of very warm temperatures, breezy conditions. Temperatures could be near record levels again, back up around or in excess of 80 degrees. Southern areas, southeast wind 15 knots there, Ketchikan, Metlakatla. Otherwise, a mixed bag of winds in the 10 to 15 knot range out over the open waters of the Gulf, with waves running just 3 or 4 feet. Saturday, winds will generally be southeast to south through the inner channels, 10 to 15 knots, waves running 2 to 3 feet. Outer coastal areas, we expect winds in the Gulf to be south-southeast at 15 to 20 knots from Craig to Gustavus, waves about 5 feet, and then more northwesterly winds Yakutat westward at 10 to 20 knots, and waves there about 4 feet. Variable winds will be the rule on Friday across the northwestern open water Gulfs at just 10 knots, and waves only 2-3 feet even up there through Prince William Sound. Generally, winds, though, will become more northerly as we go down the length, upper and middle portions of Cook Inlet at 10 to 15 knots, and waves a couple of feet. For Saturday, winds do pick up out over the Gulf, at least the northwestern end off the Kenai. Look for a northerly component to the winds around 25 to even 30 knots, and waves running 5 feet. North winds 20 knots, 3-foot waves in Prince William Sound. Mouth of Cook Inlet there, the entrance, 25 knots, southwest winds 5 knots, and lesser winds, westerly 10 knots there, middle upper Cook Inlet with waves only a couple feet. For Friday, winds will generally be variable around 10 knots surrounding Kodiak Island and on the Bering side of the Alaska Peninsula, but on the North Pacific side, we expect winds to be west-southwest 15 knots and waves around 4 feet. For Saturday, winds will continue to be variable there. Shelikof Strait, more westerly, though, as we go out through the North Pacific side at 15 to 20 knots, waves 4 to 5 feet, and generally 10-knot winds and waves only a couple feet on the Bering side. Low pressure will be passing south of the central Aleutians on Friday. This will translate to east-southeast winds around 20 to 25 knots and waves 5 to 6 feet on the Bering side and 7 to 9 feet on the North Pacific side. Winds will fall off a bit for Saturday. Eastern and central Aleutians. Eastern Aleutians variable winds only around 10 knots there at Dutch Harbor, waves at best a few feet. And generally easterly to northeasterly winds 15 to 20 knots through the central and western Aleutians. Along the west coast, generally a northerly component to the wind, though a bit divergent with northeast and northwesterly winds around 15 knots. Waves, though, generally running only a few feet along coastal areas, maybe 4 or 5 feet as you get way out in the open waters surrounding St. Paul as well as St. Matthew. Winds will be a bit more northerly on Saturday, 15 to 20 knots, and waves running 3 to 5 feet. For the areas along the lower Chukchi Sea, Bering Strait, winds will be southerly at 15 knots and a bit variable as we round out offshore flow 15 knots Point Ley, and generally easterly winds around 10 to as high as 20 knots along the Arctic coast. Those easterly winds will increase though by Saturday, could shift the ice a bit at 25 to 30 knots along the Arctic coast, and then turn more northerly passing through the Bering Strait at 10 to 15 knots. Quick check of the weather map. Quiet across the mainland Friday. Main weather feature approaching front the Chukchi Sea and the low southwest of the central Aleutians. Thank you for watching, and join me again tomorrow night.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.